Hello and welcome back to Veteran State of Mind. I'm your host, Geraint Jones, joined in studio today by Trevor Coult MC, which means he is a military cross winner, not a mic controller for any Americans listening. Not run the MC, military cross winner. We are down in London, last minute, spur of the moment kind of thing. But I think me and Trevor, we've been talking on Twitter, and I think we got a lot of common ground. I think to go over. We've got we just want to dig into some of the things that have been coming up in the news and stuff a lot lately. There's a lot going on. To be honest, this is probably the busiest period I can think of things going on in the army and in the veteran community, in the news. Pretty turbulent time, full stop, when it comes to politics. And the army, the military, is the tool of politics. It's an extension of politics. War is what happens when politics fail, or when people just can't think of a better way of doing shit. And so we're going to get into things in a bit. First of all, a little bit of housekeeping. On the last podcast, I asked you guys if you would be as good as to be able to support the podcast by not digging into your pockets, but by bringing me a friend, because I don't have any friends. I need more friends, right? So we're trying to grow the podcast, and the way I think we should grow the podcast is that if you enjoy it, and if you're still listening, this is going to be I think it's 18 or something. If you're still listening by now, I'm assuming you do listen to it. If you've just wandered into the podcast, hello. But for everybody else, look, the podcast is doing well. We've got a good, really solid base, but I want to be growing this message, trying to reach as many veterans as possible, trying to reach as many people with members of family who are in the services, people who want to be in the services, people that are in the services. So if you enjoy the podcast, if you could just if you're talking to your friends, just say, yo, been listening to this Veteran State of Mind. Gaz rambles on a little bit, but he's got a good heart, so over you go. Or if you can make a share on social media, that would be awesome. Like, share something, tag people in it, tag people in the post, but that's how I'd like to grow it. So if there's a fee for the podcast, then that would be the fee. Bring me your friends, please. And I just obviously got to cover Brothers in Arms, my book. Guys, thank you so fucking much for the support. I'm talking to camera right now. It's a direct-to-camera with Breckenhand. It's a Breckenhand of love. Thank you for supporting the book. Doing well, and it's been fucking amazing and very humbling to have messages from people who have been in Afghanistan, Iraq, or any other conflicts. I've had Northern Ireland veterans contacting me. And I always said doing this book that if it got the seal of approval of soldiers, then that was a success. And if it helped one person in their own mental health struggles, then it's been a success. So good news. The book has been a success. The sales and stuff like that are doing well. And that's awesome. And I'm very happy for that. But it's fucking very, obviously I'm a man. Never get emotional. But if I was to get emotional, then it would be when I get a message from somebody saying that they've had a hard time and that they found some kind of solace in knowing that someone else has been through it and come out the other side. So thank you so fucking much, guys. If you haven't read the book and you want to, then you can find it. There's links on my page, Amazon, all that kind of stuff. So thank you for that. Sales spiel over. Let's get into the fucking podcast. Trev, welcome. Thank you for coming down. Last minute, so cheers.
Thanks for having me. I've been invited to quite a few podcasts with you and different things, and I've never been able to make that time, to be honest. So this came up, and my wife went, "Just go." So
good. Thank you for Mrs. Court for allowing that. So I'm just going to give a bit of background. I'm quite new to Twitter, right? So this is because I always like to kind of explain to people how things come about, and I'm quite new to Twitter. And one of the reasons I got off there was because, and this isn't a thing aimed at veterans or whatever, just in general, I just felt I feel like on Instagram there's a very high level of positivity. Sometimes maybe false positivity, some people may be projecting things better than they actually are. But I feel like for every interaction I have on Instagram, say for every fucking 1,000 interactions, so that could be someone commenting or sending a message or something like that. For every 1,000 of those, there's one negative one. Facebook, it's more for every few hundred, there's one negative one. On Twitter, I feel like the negativity on there far outweighs the positivity. Now, what I think needs to be drawn a distinction on, though, is there is a difference between legitimate critique of things And because not like the world isn't roses, and I'll be the first one to fucking say that. And I think there's also like I'm very critical of I put a post up the other day about the withdrawal from Basra, which is one of the like most I think covered up, and I'm going to say it, disasters, a fucking disaster of military and strategic planning, which has severely damaged the credibility of the UK armed forces in the eyes of our American allies, in the eyes of the Iraqis. Without going down too much of a rabbit hole here, because it's something I'm going to cover in another podcast, whenever I say something like this, there's always people that go, "Oh, how dare you say that about a British soldier?" I'm not saying about the British soldier. The British soldier did everything that they were asked of and more in Iraq. I'm talking about the upper echelons of leadership. I'm not talking about battalion level. I'm not probably even talking about brigade level. I'm talking about the highest levels of authority who decided, without informing the Iraqi government, that we were just going to fucking make a deal with the militia and pull out of Basra. And then a few months later, the Americans came down with the Iraqis. They had to retake Basra from the militias that we made the thing of. That's the long end of the story. So I'm just putting that out there because I don't want people going, "Oh, but you can't say that about a British soldier." Right? So, because there are people like that. And look, I'll say this, and I've said this before. When people are coming at me with that stuff, I get that you're coming from a nice place. I get that you're trying to protect the honour of the British soldier. I fucking really appreciate that. But there needs to be discourse, there needs to be critique of things, because otherwise what's going to happen is these best intentions of saying, "Oh no, you can't say anything negative," what those best intentions lead to is deaths further down the line, because we don't learn our lessons. If we don't learn our lessons, it's paid for in blood by making the same mistakes on next one. So anyway, would it be fair to say, Trev, that you are a bit of a controversial figure when it comes to the military, because you're not afraid to speak it as you see it? And speaking from my own point of view, because I've been called in the press recently, I've been said that I've had some controversial opinions because I said that some soldiers want to kill, and I've had people say that that's controversial, and I mean I'm sticking to my guns on that. I wanted to kill the enemy, and I know plenty of other people did too. I don't think that's controversial. I think that makes sense for an infantry soldier. And I think that sometimes just because you voice a strong opinion, people think that it's a controversial opinion. Would you think that's a fair assessment?
It's a fair assessment, but I voice my opinion from a place of where I've learnt. So if I've been in combat, for instance, in my 20 years, I managed to deploy on 10 operational tours abroad. Wow. One of them was only for 4 months in South Armagh, but the fact that I've been in all those different types of terrains and conflicts, and I've learnt a message, or I've learnt a value from each of one of those, and I had great teams around me, which I learnt from. Now, I am quite vocal, and I won't stop.
Sorry, I'm just going to turn that a little bit more in front of you.
All right. I am quite vocal, and I won't stop. Now, those that say, "Oh, he's too vocal, he's very opinionated, blah, blah, blah," you know what? Water off a duck's back. Because at the end of the day, my opinions and me voicing my opinion has got me into the House of Lords, the House of Commons, 10 Downing Street, the MOD. I've had 2 sit-down meetings with General Richard Noogie, and I am now in great comms with the new Defence Secretary, Penny Mordaunt. So if I didn't voice my opinion and I didn't say what I honestly believed, then I wouldn't have been invited to all those places.
Do you think that this, mate, comes from the attitude of you could just, as a soldier, you should just shut your mouth and crack on? And that, like, there's this attitude of, even after uniform, that you should just keep your mouth shut and just crack on and have that kind of, I don't want to call it stiff upper lip, because I think stiff upper lip still exists in the fact that you take casualties, you crack on. That is kind of, to me, that's what stiff upper lip is. But I think there's this kind of idea that a soldier should have blind obedience during service and after service. Do you think there's any truth to that?
Well, as a young soldier, to be honest, I know that today they're trying to tell them all to speak up, voice your opinion. But as a young soldier, you knew that you had to earn that time.
Unless you want a knuckle sandwich.
Exactly. And I think once you get, I'm not putting down soldiers, but I think once you get to the likes, you start going up the career ladder, and probably from full school onwards, you start to have a little bit more knowledge about what's happening in camp, and you can read the papers and see what's happening. But you have that thing which is the solid C, the selfless commitment, the loyalty, integrity to the British Army.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying I don't have it now that I'm out, because we need to clarify that the British Army are great, but then we have the Civil Service Head, which is the Ministry of Defence, which are a shambles. So
I have to agree.
Yeah, so
just sorry, mate. Just keep the mic in.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just
the I've learnt to, now that I'm out, I will not be quiet. Now, what happened to me was, after Herrick 8, I was a platoon sergeant attached to 2 para.
So Herrick, for civilians listening, that's the mission in Afghanistan.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
So Herrick 8 would that have been in 2007?
2008.
So 2008.
So after me being a section commander in 2006 with 3 para, and then I went back attached to 2 para as a platoon sergeant in 2008. It was after that, and I was involved, like anyone. It was tough. My radio up in front of me stood on 5 105 tank mines, and he was blown completely in half.
Jesus.
And at that time, now, I just seen the puff in front, and I was at the back being a platoon sergeant, and whenever I ran to the front, I just seen turmoil with casualties, and I was like, the first thing you think is, shit, we need to secure this area, blah, and you start going into your tactics. But then once I'd realised that the guy was dead, now we couldn't confirm that. But see all this bollocks, oh, you're not a doctor, you can't see, no, you can't, you know when someone's dead, right? The next thing went through my head was, let's get out the metal detectors and let's try and find his wedding ring. I don't know why I was thinking that, I just wanted to take that back to his wife. It was just the way I was thinking, which was probably wrong, but I knew that there was nothing we could do for him. And there was loads of things going through my head, and there was several other incidents after that. I can remember being on an operation, an air assault operation, and we had WO2 Mark Williams. You know him. He was with us. He was the FSG commander, and we had been on the ground probably 15 minutes, and he had took a round through the side, and he died instantly. And I remember having to get forward with him and having to speak to the guys. It just, at the start of an operation, that was shocking because we had to go on for another 12 hours. And having to get around the guys and lift him up and carry him, even though he was dead, the privilege of carrying him to safety, getting him back and under fire. So I came out of that and another couple of close calls. But because it was in Afghanistan and because it was a platoon sergeant, I didn't once break down, let it get above me. I just kept on top of it, trying to go around the troops, checking them all out, and they were fine. But it was psychologically affecting me, especially after the previous Herrick 4 tour in Afghanistan. So when I came back from that, I can remember being back in camp and my RSM calling me in, Alan Somerville, and says, right, you've picked up a posting at Uptag as a colour sergeant. And I went, oh, this is great, getting promoted. I'd only been a platoon sergeant about a year. I thought, I'm getting promoted again, this is fantastic. And he says, right, you're going on some new training team, you're going back out to Afghanistan. And I was like, fuck. Didn't want to go back. I'd had enough of it. I told him I didn't want to go. He says, well, you'll miss out your promotion. I says, well, fair be it. I said, well, so be it. I says, can I have a bit of a break? I've got a fiancée now and want to settle down. Where would you like to go? And I was told, you can go here. My CEO turned them all down. He went, no, you've got a military cross. We want you going in this direction. And I was like, sorry, I don't want to go in that direction. I want a break. And he went, well. And then I went and had a look around. And I remember from my days whenever I used to be a complete knobhead. I'm not saying I'm not now. I'm just saying from when I was younger, I was even worse. And I went to jail for assault in MCTC. Right. But I still knew some of the screws that worked down. They were decent blokes, X3 power, X2 power guys, nice guys. And he says, why don't you come here? It's a gift. You can work in the training wing and teach. And I thought, yeah. So I went into my CEO, says, right, sir, just to let you know, we're not deploying at the minute, so which means I can transfer. I've already put my transfer in, and I start in MCTC next Monday.
Nice.
And he was like, what? And then he shouted at me.
Because you had the military cross.
Yeah, he says, get out. He kicked me out.
Nice. Cheers. Thank you. Thank you, that's it.
The Royal Irish were, don't get me wrong, a great unit and a really professional unit.
I've got a very high opinion of the Royal
But
Irish.
I knew I was starting to fall apart mentally. And the guys had me on, I wouldn't say on a pedestal, but they thought highly of me as a decent wee soldier. I wasn't the best there, don't get me wrong, but I could hold my own. And I just left one night, just got into a hard car and drove out, didn't have a leaving do, didn't have anything, and I haven't been back since.
I think that's what it is for a lot of people. I just want to go back. So you see the 10 operational tours, right?
Yeah.
Obviously some worse than others. Like, and I'm just thinking back on my own tours and things now. because I actually mentioned I did a radio interview with someone this morning, and something hit me for the first time. They asked me about, in the book I mentioned one of the guys that took his own life, a few years after Afghanistan. But everyone knew he was a bit he was a bit fucked in the head from Iraq, right? And I'm thinking, like, don't remember there ever being a conversation of this lad had a really bad time in Iraq, maybe shouldn't go to Afghanistan. I don't remember that conversation ever happening. I certainly don't remember. Maybe I didn't see it, right? I'm saying that, but from my own experience, I don't remember ever hearing someone go. Because the thing is, right, we know as much as we've been through in our tours, right? It's not like we've been in the trenches where it was like day in, day out, the worst things. So you can usually look at a company and go, all right, on our last tour, he dealt with this casualty, or he lost his best friend, or he this. You know what I mean? There's incidents. There's incidents on the tour that stick out more than others, right? And really, there's no reason that these things aren't logged, and I'm sure they probably are logged, because one thing we fucking love in the army is we've got a bit of paperwork, and I'm sure these things are logged. And I just thought I can't ever have it, because I actually remember at the end of Iraq, we had a talk, and they said yeah, we've noted some of you as being at risk, and it was people who had if they'd lost somebody in their vehicle, if they'd had because I know one lad who's like his first kind of like handover takeover patrol in Iraq. The top cover guy in the back of the Warrior got shot through the throat and died, almost immediately. And that was his first patrol out. And then from there, things just got worse, if that's even possible. And I thought, how is he never taken in? And the thing is, I know what blokes are like. He probably would have said everything's fine. But at least he would have had the opportunity to say things aren't fine. Or I am worried about going back to Afghanistan. And I am fucking not, because I just thought about this lad who took his own life from our company, and I just thought he should never have gone to Afghanistan. It was clear. We had other blokes. It's again, we're not talking about. There's a big difference between, say, the Nazis overrunning Europe and they're fucking putting people into camps and they're killing people by the millions, and we need every fucking bloke in the field, and blokes are dying in the tens of thousands, and it's one of those things. It's a fucking shit show, and unfortunately a lot of people are going to get shit on. That didn't need to be the case in Afghanistan. We had a tiny, really, when you think about it, a very small percentage of the army was actually out there. Why were we sending blokes back who weren't mentally fit to be going there just because they're fucking PID? They're for people who don't know, PID is basically, it's your kind of paperwork number to make sure you're in the gives you your slot in your job, as per your fucking qualifications and stuff. And I just thought, his PID happened to be his PID, and this goes the other way as well. I was talking with some friends of mine recently, and the OC of our company in Afghanistan, as I talk about in the book, I don't think he's a bad person at all, but he wasn't the right person to be leading a company. But because his turn to be OC happens to come around that time, he ends up being a company commander of a bloke, even though he just wasn't suited for it. He might have been qualified on paper, but he wasn't the man for the job. But because his PID happened to fall in, then you're sent in, and the army is made up of people, but in a lot of ways it's dealt with like a machine of paperwork, and there's some like that needs to happen to some extent. But I'm just thinking, a lot of these things would have been so easily manageable. So yeah, my question to you would be, did you ever, in all those tours, between tours, did you ever kind of had some? Did you ever see any kind of triage of people's mental health in between tours?
Herrick 4 and 8, yeah. I went to Herrick 4 having been. In fact, that's a lie. I went to Herrick 8 having been trained up as a trim practitioner. Right, okay. So I knew how to signpost them and check the guys out that way. But
you knew that, was there a system of checking people before they were going to check a guy's mental health before tour?
With our company, I know that Frankie O'Connor, at the time the Sergeant Major, he had guys come in to check the guys out every so often, so he did keep on top of it. He personally kept on top of it, but he had a tough time as well. Coming back from Herrick 8, they were starting in 2008. They were starting to put things in place, but after Herrick 4 in 2006, it was ridiculous. It was just, right, guys, there's 10,000 tins of beer. go and knock the hell out of each other.
Yeah,
and that's what
awesome that was.
Did you remember?
Yeah.
That's what it
It was
was.
brilliant. It was great. I actually think that worked in a lot of ways. I mean, I don't think that should have been the end to your that's the end to your decompression. But I think as a beginning to it, I think as a beginning to your decompression, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Like I think that was a great idea to do because we came back on a later one. I'm sure you did too, where it was a 2-can rule, and everyone's just like, "Stop wasting my fucking time. Let us get smashed or let us go home."
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But I actually think that my theory behind that is that the cleaners on that camp just went on strike or got PTSD because that place every couple of days there's a new company coming in, shitting everywhere, puking everywhere, pissing on each other, knocking the shit out of each other. I mean, that place looked like Dante's Inferno in the morning after what, like, I mean, yeah, it's it was an interesting time, old Bloodhound Camp. Shout out anyone who's been at Bloodhound Camp on fucking decompression. Jesus Christ.
I think a lot of PTSD was made for Bloodhound Camp.
Well, I remember some signallers that weren't from our unit getting pinned down and just hosed with piss.
Jesus Christ.
It was like, yeah, everyone's like, it was dick and balls all over the fucking place. Anyone that went for a shit in the Portaloo got the thing knocked over onto them. It was just, there was scores getting settled. There was a lot, like, so I remember I'm coming back from Telek 9. I got on the Telek 9. I was waiting for my flight to go back because I finished Telek 9 early so I could go back on Telek 10. And that's why it's Iraq for people who don't know Telek. And I'm waiting in that little airport thing that they've got in Cyprus. And there was a company, One Yorks were there, and they just finished their decompression. And it was so funny. There was black eyes all over the place, just lads like they were so hungover and. Because I didn't know what decompression was at the time, but that was my first. I actually saw, as a person with no hangover, I was witness to what a company looked like at the end of it, and I was just like, Jesus Christ, what's been going on here? I asked my mate, and he was just like, yeah, people just knocking the shit out of each other last night. I'm like, whoa, fucking hell. But better it happened there than it happens in your fucking in the goat in Sidworth.
Well, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so the trim course and stuff is like, because there was a trim, you know, I don't remember hearing about trim or anything like that when I was in Iraq, but I'm sure maybe it existed, but I didn't. I personally didn't come across it. I do remember getting trimmed when I was involved in an incident in Afghanistan that required, you know, trimming. But like I said before, you know, my platoon sergeant, he was a trim guy. He asked me the questions, but you have to be willing participants. And my thing was like, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine. The truth was, every time I closed my eyes, I was seeing images of what I'd seen. I wasn't going to tell him that. Wasn't even going to tell my best mates that. I didn't tell anyone that. But like, you know, and that is the problem. Like, it's a two-way street here. So I think there's this thing of like, yes, the army does need to do some things better, but it's got to be a culture shift in the idea. I was talking with these ladies yesterday on the Metro podcast and about mental health, and I was saying I did a Radio 5 show the other week to promote the book, and I'm sat there I got the Chief Executive of Combat Stress with me. She's going to take part in this, and Major Cormac Doyle from the Bridge Charity, and they were on Radio 5 in the afternoon, and I'm talking about being open about mental health, and there's still a little voice in the back of my head going, could you not have just sucked it up? Do you know what I mean? And that's me. Like, I'm an advocate of being open, and there's still that little voice in my head that's like, come on, lads, Corporal Jones, well, could you not sucked it up?
The way I look at it, and I'm quite vocal about this, the big charities. Now, I know common sense states that. Common sense states that all charities that are doing things for veterans, you know, you can't knock them. But if you don't knock them, they keep doing what they're doing.
Exactly.
So with the likes of the top 6 charities, now I know from research, and I do it all the time, and I get in touch with loads of different people that are journalist friends of mine from different papers, and I let them know what's happening. And you say that the British Army are promoting this mental health, it's good to talk, it's this, it's that, but that's bollocks. Because if they wanted to promote mental health, how come, for instance, in 2018 there was 365 soldiers discharged, one every day with mental health issues, right? And if you look at what Tobias Elwood said maybe last month, he said that there was only 2 in every 1,000. Now, he stated this on Good Morning Britain. You can Google the Good Morning Britain, look at it. He stated 2 in every 1,000 get PTSD. But if there's 365 discharged last year, what does that mean? Does that mean he's just doubled the amount of people in our army? His statistics don't work out. Now, if the MOD were pro-mental health, then how come every time a member of the armed forces gets discharged with mental health or PTSD, they're very quick to sign that discharge paper with mental health, but whenever that person leaves the forces and then puts a claim in, they get back a letter from Veterans UK which states, can you prove that your mental health was caused by service life?
And let's not forget the statute of the time limit on this as well. Like, I can't claim for my PTSD because I'm outside the window of, claiming for it. Now, can you do it if you've got a good lawyer and stuff? Maybe, but you're definitely not probably going to be able to do it for free. And I've said before about how fucking I have a university education and I look at the paperwork for claiming for that stuff and I'm fucking boggled by it. Look, with the mental health thing, for instance, one of the things which is proven in combat doctrine throughout the fucking centuries is if you have a case of somebody with mental health issues from combat, the best thing to get them over that is to keep them close to the people that they went through experiences with. Now, that applies close to the battlefield. I think it should also apply back from the battlefield. So let's say somebody has PTSD. Let's say okay, I'm going to make up somebody based on people that I've come across. A full screw who's done 3 tours. He's developed mental health problems. You probably never want to send him on another combat tour, right? Because you don't want him freezing up or anything, or you don't want, and that's understandable. How many jobs in the army are actually fucking frontline jobs? Very few as a percentage, right? So instead of chinning these people off back to Civvy Street and taking them away from people that can understand them a bit more and taking them away from the family, how about finding them a fucking job in the army that they can still contribute? For instance, there's instructors. There's a lot of instructor jobs throughout the army. Put them into a fucking instructor job. Or find them a job, maybe it's a case of transferring and they're now on the REMI side of things and they're working in the sheds in your battalion, but they have a job. Or maybe you find them a civvy job that's at the camp, so they're still close. This idea of just chinning people off and then thinking that their mental health is then going to get better, for most people that's not going to be a case. The one that I'm most strongly against, though, is this idea that people can fail a drug test and then be chinned off without any rehab or anything like that. Now, I've said before, because there are asterisk holes out there, I like to use the thing of because yes, there's an asterisk on everything. There's always people who are going to be different. There are lads out there who are going to join at 18, realise they don't want to be in anymore, and they're going to take a fucking pill and then go and tell the platoon sergeant because they want to get out of the army. Those people exist and they should just be got out and got rid of. We all know the difference. But if you've got a fucking, again, let's use a 3-tour full screw, for example, a good fucking solid bloke, and all of a sudden he started turning up with fucking bad hangovers every day, or he fails a fucking drug test. That's happened for a reason. So the idea that we can just fucking chin people off, no rehab. So if you break your leg in the service, you have to have that treatment for that leg before you're released.
Yeah.
But not for your mental health. No, see you later, mate. Bye. Cheers. In fact, not only that, we're going to give you a dishonourable discharge. It's going to be harder for you to get a fucking job. Yeah. If I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure you lose a lot of resettlement and pension benefits and that kind of stuff too. And then good luck in Civvy Street. Now with that, again, just because someone, and I'm speaking as somebody that's had a very bad fucking drink and drug problem, you can come out the other side of it. If you put me back into the military system now, all right, my knees are a bit fucking shagged, but I could go back in and be a good soldier again. There's a period of my life where I couldn't be. Now I could be. The idea of you just take this person with all that experience who's given so much and just chin him off, because I'm not even going to say that they made a fucking mistake, because honestly, sometimes the difference between taking and I know some people might be shaking their heads at this now. Fuck you, you haven't been in this fucking position, right? If sometimes, literally, the choice someone's got is suicide or finding something that will get them through the day, and that thing is quite often drink or drugs. That's what gets them through. That's what keeps them alive. It's literally, that's why so many people turn to drink and drugs. Not because they want to, but it's what enables them to numb themselves enough to get through the day. Once they've dealt with the issues that caused that, why can't they continue in their fucking job? Oh, now, all of a sudden, the army is struggling for fucking recruiting numbers again. So guess what they've been doing? Getting in touch with the people who have they kicked out for drug fucking problems and offered them their own fucking jobs back. That is fucking mental, because what's that said to me? The army's excuse for kicking people out for drugs has always been. Oh, and by the way, if anyone's thinking I'm just saying that because I got kicked out for drugs, I didn't. I never touched a drug while I was in the army. So let's make that clear. But the army's excuse for kicking people out is, it affects operational efficiency, but these people could be blackmailed, all this kind of stuff. Well, one, if you had better fucking aftercare for people, the blackmail thing goes off the table anyway. Because if you can actually just go to your platoon sergeant and say, fucking, Sarge, I've got a fucking problem. The only way I've been able to get to sleep is by taking such and such every night, or the only way that I can stop thinking about such and such is by taking such and such. If you could have that conversation with your platoon sergeant and know that your career's not going to get fucking terminated, people would have that conversation. The reason they don't have it is because they know once they've had that conversation, they're done. They're going to lose the brotherhood. They're going to lose their fucking income. So, of course, people fucking keep it quiet. So that idea that you can be blackmailed is absolute fucking bollocks. We allow people to get into debt in the army, which is something that is far more easily leveraged than blackmail. If someone is in 50 grand of debt and they're in the army and somebody comes along and says, I want you to let me through at this gate, I'll give you fucking 50 grand. That person is going to take it. But we allow people to get into debt, but we don't allow people to come forth with drug problems and so forth. Not just drug problems, but this goes for anything. There's a lot of people that came forward. Imagine this. Someone coming forward, go and speak to their platoon commander and saying, sir, I'm being violent towards my wife. I don't want to be. I am. I can't help it. I need help. Is that going to happen? Is that person going to be out the fucking army before you fucking know it? So this fucking thing of just kicking people out. But yeah. And then to have the audacity to offer people their jobs back. Because it's either the reason sticks, either the reasons that you kicked them out for are legitimate reasons and they should never be allowed back in, or they're bollocks. It's one or the other. And surprise, surprise, when did everybody start getting CDT'd on a fucking weekly basis? It's when it's when the army were trying to they were trying to cut the numbers. The army starts, sorry, I'm going off on a rant here, but I'll just finish this little bit. The army starts needing to cut numbers. All of a sudden, CDTs go from about one a year to about one a fucking week. They're flying through and they're going after infantry units that have seen fucking hard tours because they know that's where they're going to find a lot of guys to cut out. Were there people caught in those CDTs who were just taking drugs recreationally just for a laugh? Yes, there was. Should they have been kicked out? I still think that's a fucking waste of money, honestly. I still think there should just be some kind of MCT, Colchester punishment, and then kept them back in. I think the idea of losing all that investment is ridiculous, but that's by the by. There are a lot of people there who were released who were just genuinely had issues post-tour, who should have been looked after better. All my friends who have been in, they told me as soon as the army hit those recruiting numbers, CDTs dropped back to about one a year. Someone tell me that's not coincidence. Wow. That is fucking disgusting. I'm sorry for the rant, mate, but that fucking winds me up.
It's well justified.
We both need a bit of water after that one. Yeah, it's mad. There's no getting around it. That's what it was, And people say, "Show me your figures." Shut up. I can look outside and see the sky is blue and tell you the sky is blue without needing to tell you why the sky is fucking blue, right? I don't have a figures. I can tell you what I've seen with my own fucking eyes. And sometimes if you see something and there's an obvious answer for it, it's because that is the obvious answer. People can then spin numbers and shit. People can spin numbers. Trevor and I could both have different sets of statistics here. We could have people from the MOD and we'll all have the same numbers and we're all spinning them in different ways. What I'm going off is what I've seen in my own eyes with dozens and dozens and dozens of cases again and again and again. I know of one person who went to see the welfare officer to tell him that he had an opiate issue. And he finally mustered up the courage to go in and say he was going to go in and say, "Sir, I have a drug problem." He walks in. "Why the fuck haven't you shaved? Get the fuck out." Boots him out, and he goes, "I'm done," and just went AWOL, never came back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, what I've been doing is, as you know, social media is it has its ups and downs,
yep.
But it's fantastic for getting the message out. Now, on Facebook and on Twitter and Instagram, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of veterans groups.
Keep talking.
Which are awesome, and there's loads of charities which follow those groups. So, not that long ago, I speak to everyone. I speak to Pete Neal, who runs the Veterans Respite. I speak to Dave Wood, who does great stuff volunteering for Help for Homeless Veterans. I speak to Kerry at Help a Squatty. I speak to Billy McLeod down at the Veterans in Action. So I speak to dozens of people. Andy Allen, Northern Ireland, who runs Andy Allen's Veterans. So I speak to all the different CEOs and I try and find out what they are all doing.
That's
Now,
great.
It is a team effort, as you know. It is a team effort. I don't affiliate myself to any one charity, and I don't affiliate myself to any one politics or anything. I try and keep myself back, so I can, which gives me that chance to sort of argue with everyone about to fix the one thing, which is veterans issues. Now, whenever you look at Tobias Elwood, who keeps talking shit about there's not an issue here, there's not an issue in mental health, not an issue. This year, the MOD have managed to do all these good things. But if you look at the statistics, right, if you get in touch with all the small charities now, believe it or not, there's 1,888 military charities in the UK. 1,888. Now, I could sit here and start writing them down, and I might get to 40, and I would forget what the rest of them are, because we don't know what they are. It wasn't that long ago, probably 2 months ago, we managed to delete and take the charity status of nearly 750 charities whose sole purpose was just to signpost you to another charity. They're now gone. But there is still some out there. So if you look at all those other charities saying, out of their reports, and you collate their information, it works out that there's not 12,000 homeless veterans, there's not 9,000 homeless veterans. There is round about just over 7,000 homeless veterans, and that is from sources which will say who's going to food banks here, who's turned up the Salvation Army here. So these figures are all put together by them and put in, and the homeless charities do know that there's just over 7,000. But believe it or not, which this sounds awful saying this, out of those just over 7,000 homeless veterans, half of them believe, this is awful, want to be homeless. They have no interest in getting housed, where the other half do want housed, and that's the ones that's trying to get fixed. I spoke to David Wood, I think it was yesterday morning, on the phone, and David wants to push with Penny Mordaunt, the new Defence Secretary, about the military covenant, because at the minute, when you leave the forces and you're homeless, if you've been out the forces for 5 years or more, you're not classed as a veteran.
Wow.
Now, what David wants to achieve, and I'm going to push it, is he would like the government to extend that to 10 years out the forces.
I mean, personally, I think it should be a life.
Of course it is. Yeah, thing. You're a veteran.
You don't like. I saw recently, interviews with like 90-something-year-old D-Day veterans, and they're crying and they'll live in that moment again. There's not a fucking expiry date on your service. Either there's not an expiry date on what you've seen and what you've done, and there's not an expiry date on what the country owes you. And I was just going to say, as I've said before, when I say the country owes you, I just want to make this clear to people. I've always said the country owes you a fair deal.
Yeah,
nothing more than a fair deal, just a fair deal. That's it. And I think a part of a fair deal would be recognising you as a veteran for the rest of your life. That's part of a fair deal.
Of course it is. Now, I will always kick big charities up the ass, and the reason why I do it is, it sounds awful, I like to try and keep a finger on the pulse so they know they're being watched, so they don't take the piss out of veterans. But when you look at the fact that the RBL, my figures, mate, I'm great at these things, when the RBL employs 1,518 people, 6 of those people are on over 100 grand a year. 6 on over 100 grand a year. The RBL's wage bill each year comes to just over £40 million a year. Yep. That's their wage bill. Now, I know that's from subscriptions and people donating, which is great. I'm not saying they do a bad job, because I know they do a good job. But if you're going to put out this message every year saying 1 day service is a lifetime of support, if you want to really change veterans and improve veterans' welfare, then stop raising money and start challenging policies. Because if you can challenge a policy, for instance, if you've got PTSD and you're discharged with post-traumatic stress disorder, you're usually given 99.9% time £6,000 lump sum and an interim of 2 years.
Yeah.
Now, £6,000, but bear in mind, you've probably just lost your job being discharged, and if you're in a married quarter, you've lost your house as well. So if you've lost 2 things, that's £6,000, right? They say it's compensation. They say it's not for this. It's not to get a truck to move your stuff into your house. It's not to pay your down payment for your rent, and it's not to pay your rent. But that £6,000 is gone from you moving from your married quarter into a civilian house with paying a month's deposit, probably. Maybe a new sofa and a fridge to fit that house. That's £6,000 gone. You then have to apply for personal independent payments. You apply for your employment support allowance or whatever you're entitled to. You put your claim in. They want proof that you've been discharged with that. Now, if the MOD... Now, I have spoke to General Richard Noogie in his office not that long ago, and there has been something implemented. I mentioned to General Richard Noogie, if you really wanted to show the veterans community that you wanted to improve things, then you offer them another deal, not just a £6,000 lump sum in 2 years. Why not give that as an option? And option B would be you let them stay in their property for 1 year after discharge to help them get themselves on. Now, that's happening. So I must admit, General Richard Noogie has implemented that. And from April this year, veterans that are discharged with mental health are allowed to stay in their military property for an extra 12 months.
I do think, I'm pretty sure as well that from what I remember about my friends in the States, that they get relocation fees paid for them. Like the US military will relocate you from your last duty station to your new home as part of your just part of your discharge. It's not something you have to pay for yourself. I just want to push back on something you say. I agree with what a lot of you are saying though, mate. And then everyone will have a different opinion on this. But my opinion on charities getting involved in policy is that I don't think it's their job to. Personally, I don't. I think that once charities start getting involved in policy, it can really kind of mess things up, because it's like if you might have, I look at, say, the BBC right now. It's not a charity, but I'm going to use this as an example. The BBC right now is no longer an impartial figure that it used to be, because the people at the top are using it to guide policy, which I think is wrong. This became very clear when they didn't cover the veterans' marches against Soldier F. There was a clear thing there, and I worry with charities that if they were used as policy, then it could, would they pursue necessarily the right ones? I think that's not necessarily the right thing. I think the people that should challenge policy are people like you and I, people who have, people listen to our opinions, whether they're good ones or not. People fucking listen. There's MPs out there from the forces or with interest in the forces. There are individuals out there who are, and I think it's up to us to challenge policy. My personal opinion is that I don't really think that that's the place for charities. Going back to touching on the British Legion, I'll say this, because I've been doing a lot of stuff with the British Legion recently. I think they've realised that they've got definitely an image problem and work to do, because they've been getting into, I've had quite a few sit downs with them recently to work on this stuff. There's people in there from, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with anybody that served in anything other than Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm not saying that by any means, right? But I think what the British Legion have realised is that they need to get up to speed on the changing world, because the world. Like if your charity is set up 100 years, 200 years ago, so like some 50 years ago, 5 years ago, the world 5 years ago isn't the world now. Charities need to evolve, and the bigger an organisation, the slower things are to evolve, Yeah. So I think, to be fair, I think they do some good work there. I do think, again, though, it's like it's a tough one, because it's like I was saying earlier, when if somebody thinks that I'm slagging off soldiers because I'm not happy about withdrawal from Basra, for instance, that's understandable, and they're coming at it from a good place. It's the same with a lot of people that set up small charities. They're coming at it from a good place. They think that they're doing well, but and it's a very tough one, because I've seen some charities who will use the statistic of 22 veteran suicides a day. Yeah. And it's a tough conversation to have with them, because I want to be like, and it's usually 22 suicides a day from PTSD. They believe that is the case because they've misconstrued figures from America. Like the 22 number a day comes from some studies that were done in America. It's not even all studies, but there's some studies that get cited as 22 veteran suicides a day in America. For one, you have to remember in America that the veteran pool is huge. We are talking something probably like a quarter, not quarter of the country, but not far off, because you have to remember that in that veteran pool, there are millions of people that were drafted during the time of Vietnam who are now in the 60s. There were obviously, unfortunately, it's coming to the end of that. There were millions of people who served in the Second World War. There was millions of people who did a national service after that. So their veteran pool is enormous, because it includes a huge number of people who did 2-3 years conscription or whatever. That's the same in the UK. A lot of veterans in the UK were, national service and not volunteers. And then to say that those suicides are all caused by PTSD is one of the big. This is why I spoke with Radio 5 the other day, because the question I put to listeners is, they're basically like, are we doing veterans justice? Are we doing a harm by saying that PTSD is the cause of all veteran mental health ills? And we are, because, a lot of those suicides are down to things like people's wives leaving them, being in debt, the things that cause, like suicide is the biggest killer in young men. And
is that not down to the MOD though? Because
I'll come on to that. But what I'm saying, I'll come on to that. So yes, these charities that are pushing this narrative of PTSD killing people, all veterans, they're doing it from a good place. So it's a very delicate conversation to have with them, because they are good people trying to save the lives of veterans, and that is fucking admirable. Now, on the other side, we have the MOD. So on the other side of the equation, we have the MOD. Now, they know that not all veteran suicides are PTSD related, but they seem very reticent to try and change the narrative. Why would that be? Well, I'm wearing my cap, and let's call it a cynical cap. Because if I'm wearing my fucking cynical cap right now, I'm going to say the reason they don't want to change that is because then they would need to address the issues such as veterans not being able to manage their finances. You know, picking people from deliberately targeting people for recruitment who live in the most poverty-stricken areas in the UK, who quite often come from broken homes, who have trauma before they even come into the military. You then compound that trauma. You teach people to be rewarded for being violent, because don't kid yourselves, people, as much as we are very controlled in the British Army, we are control people. We are fucking professionals. We are violent people. You let loose a fucking company on the enemy, and you see what happens. This is, you know, we are the same fucking DNA of people who fucked the Vikings off. You know, like, there's a reason that people go on and on about how great the fucking Vikings are. Well, look, they're not in the UK anymore, are they? And that's the reason, because they got fucking kicked out. We are a warlike people. We had the biggest empire in the history of the world. Stop kidding yourself that we're not warlike.
When you look at that, now, it's a very good point. Not all people that are discharged with PTSD have PTSD. But it's a very, very easy title to give someone when they come to you and say they've got a few issues. Yep. Now, rather than saying that they've got PTSD, which I brought up before with someone in the MOD, but how many people go to the doctors and say, I've got a few issues, I can't sleep. They get given sleeping tablets, or they get given medication, and then they have to go back and see a shrink, and all of a sudden this is all tying up, and they end up getting discharged with PTSD.
And if you don't know any better, you believe what you get told. If I go and see a doctor and I say I've done something to my knee, and they go, oh, it's your clitoral labia, I'll be like, guess that's what it is. Yeah. And then I'll go to my mates and they'll go, oh, tip your knee, oh, Toby, clitoral labia. You know what I mean? Like, I won't know any fucking different. I'm just going, I'm like, well, they're professional. Yeah. Like, when I got fucking diagnosed with PTSD, and I'm not blaming the shrink here, because he's doing what his job was. Yeah. He goes, right, you've got PTSD. I'm going to write you a prescription for antidepressants. I'm like, well, I don't want antidepressants.
I'm not depressed.
Well, yeah, but I just thought, I don't want a drug here. I was like, I tried drugs, mate. Drugs aren't the fucking answer. But, like, you know, I was never offered, like, how much exercise are you doing? How's your relationship with your family? None of that. It's like, have some fucking drugs. One size fits all solution. Again, if I'm wearing my cynical cap, I'd say that the people who fucking run those companies have lots of ties to the government and they get kickback. Yeah. But that's another story. That's for when I go on Joe Rogan podcast and I'm doing my conspiracy theories. I just bought a big whiteboard the other day so I can write all my conspiracy theories out on it. But yeah, so this whole label of PTSD, it's a one size all fits solution. I always say to people, just think about it like this. If you say to somebody, you've got a bad leg, there can be hundreds of different reasons why you could have a bad leg. Your knee could be fucked. Your ankle could be fucked. There's loads of bones in your foot. It could be any one of those bones. Bad leg is not a bad leg. Mental health problems for veterans is not one fucking thing. It could be all kinds of different things. And like you said, it could be a treatable thing that then gets a PTSD label on it. Boom, you're out. The issue with that, because people are saying, well, why is that an issue? Well, the reason that's an issue is because, let's say, I'm going to stick with a leg analogy here. Stick with a leg analogy. Let's say I've got a bad knee because of torsion in my leg, right? I've got an imbalance in my muscles, my leg's getting pulled out of whack and it's fucking my knee up. If I go to a doctor and they tell me that it's an ankle causing more problems, so here's the ankle exercises that you need to do and here's some medication for your ankle or whatever, or we're going to do an operation on your ankle, that's not going to fix the problem. And I'm going to start thinking, oh, well, I've been going through all this stuff. None of it's working for me. I guess there's no solution. The only way to get over this bad leg now is to kill myself. Because they've been misdiagnosed, mistreated. You know, and that's why this thing is a problem. I mean, and I'm guilty of this too, in not being able to explain it very well, because literally, it was only until my mum read my book that she really understood where a lot of my issues were coming from. Were not because of, like, yes, I do have PTSD, but it's very hard explaining to people that, look, what causes me to lose sleep these days is not that I'm seeing nasty images in my mind. It's the knowledge that I'll never be on tour with the boys again, and I'm never going to go through that, and I feel like I don't have a purpose in life. That's what was causing me mental health issues. Now, the solution to dealing with that mental health issue, as an example, is extremely different to PTSD. Like PTSD, I need therapy. You know, I may need some medication. I'm going to need a different kind of solution. Whereas solution for lack of purpose, I need to just find another purpose. There's no need for medication. There's no need for therapy even. I just need to find a purpose. So that's why it's so important that we get these things done. Do you think that there's any... Have you seen any effort from the MOD, Army, etc.? Have you seen an effort from them to identify this stuff, or do they seem, in your opinion, to be happy to lump it all in as PTSD?
I know from personal conversations with General Noogie that he is trying.
So can you just give, you mentioned him a couple of times, so you just give a shout out, me included, to just give a little quick spiel on who this guy is? General
Noogie is the Chief of Defence People. He looks after civil servants and the armed forces as a whole. 3-star general. He's Tran, and I know I'm a pain because
he's what? I thought you said trans.
No, he's not. No, he's not trans.
I was going to say, when I'm the first trans guest, I was going to try and get him on.
I've had 2 chats with him, and I've went to the MOD to see him twice, and I know he's trying like hell to make changes. But it's getting through to ministers. Yeah. Now, Penny Mordaunt, I've spoke to her quite recently, quite a few times. She has just ring-fenced, I'm going to mention this, she has just ring-fenced £9 million, which isn't a lot. Now, but that doesn't take into consideration the money which has now been put aside for the NHS and different things. But she has ring-fenced £9 million, which is not just for charity. The priority of that £9 million is going to veterans that run veterans projects with mental health. She told me that yesterday, and she is trying to do a lot, and I know that. Now, the thing about General Noogie is he's convinced that CTP, Career Transition Partnership, he's convinced that that's working because Career Transition Partnership are telling him that 83% of everyone that goes through their resettlement package successfully finds a job. Now, and 9% of veterans, but she told me to my face, 9% of all veterans don't want to be employed.
I think that I definitely think that we need to acknowledge that there will be some veterans who don't want to be employed.
Oh, of course, yeah.
There will be some. 9%, 1 in 10. I mean, anecdotally, I'm not sure if I buy into that, but
I put out a post on all my different social media things a while ago, talking about CTP and what the conversation I had with General Noogie. Mm-hmm. It came back, apart from officers who responded to it, who work at CTP in recruitment, they were all pro-MOD. We get every single veteran that responded, nearly 200, said that CTP had failed them and they didn't get a job after it. Right. So I honestly believe that CTP are putting a spin on things just to let the General see that it's working, because the General signs the cheque for £10 million every year for CTP.
I'm sure there's a way, as well, there's finding work. You could be in work for a day. Yeah. You know, there are jobs. The other thing I would say, say that CTP figure. Well, I might be wrong on this, so I'm going to put a caveat on this, and I apologise if I'm wrong on this. I don't think that you get your resettlement if you're dishonourably discharged, do you? I don't think you do.
No.
Okay.
No, you don't.
So if you're discharged for drugs or anything like that, and as we've said, there's some people who should just be discharged for being shitbags, but there's a lot of people who have genuine problems. Those people aren't getting those CTP figures, so where are they going? Because they're not going into the workforce on a good footing because they're not getting resettlement. They're going in with a dishonourable discharge. So I'd like to know what figures there are for them getting work, because I know anecdotally where a lot of them get work, and that's selling drugs. And then they end up in prison.
Well, what they need to do, and I have spoken with this with some of the meetings that I've had at the MOD, is you leave 22 years, or you leave as a captain or a sergeant or sergeant major, right? You already have that knowledge of leadership. You have that knowledge of how to take things in and how to do courses, and you normally get the full resettlement package. That may sound great, but we need to look at the guys that have done 5 and 6 years, which get pathetic amount. We need to invest in those guys, because they're the guys that kick the door in and clear that room.
Exactly.
So they are looking at changing resettlement to give the younger guys more of an impact and a bit of a start in life. So that is going to happen.
And look at this as well, right? You spend months, years training someone to be a soldier. The idea that you can then train someone to be a civvy in a few days or whatever, if you've done 4 years, or what, it's ridiculous. It needs to be an ongoing thing. There is no reason for a soldier to be leaving the army without a knowledge of money management, without a knowledge of things as basic as this is how you do your self-assessment tax if you're going to be thing. This is how you do your council tax. This is how you do your water bills. This is how you do this. You don't know any of this stuff. And we're a fast-pacing society, right? Which is great. If you're doing well, you can get momentum behind you. But momentum works both ways. If things start going badly, it builds up very quickly. If you leave the army and you do find trouble getting a job, or even if you're on, say, 35 grand and all of a sudden you're down at a 20 grand job, because let's be honest, in the scheme of things, the army doesn't pay badly. I know people say, army soldiers should get paid as much as football players, which I think is fucking ridiculous. We'd all be fucking dead of like millionaires. Millionaires weekend nearly kills us all anyway. if you give a squad 500 grand a week, we'd be fucked. You never see them again. But it does pay well because, as we said, like a lot of guys are from areas where there's not a lot of employment or good employment. So if you're coming out at like say 35 grand a year and you've been living in the block, you're going to notice a bit. There's going to be a big difference. There's a very high chance that you might end up picking up some debt. If you don't know how, and and I'll take personal. I do believe in this. The thing of taking ownership of problems. So some of this is on me as well. But the other thing is you can only take ownership of something when you know it's a problem, right? So for me, I didn't know what APR was on a credit card. Now, yes, you could say, and you'd have some justification in saying, well, I should have gone and found that out. Yeah, I should. I was also a young lad, and like I've always said, if you're thinking clearly and you're the most switched on person in the world, well, not switched on, that's not the right word, but if you are thinking of consequence and stuff like that, you're not going to go and volunteer for a job where you want to go and bayonet the enemy. Those two things don't go hand in hand. Because if you're thinking about consequence, like you're going to think, hang on a minute, this could fucking end really badly. I don't know if I want to do this. So you should be getting sat down. And I'm pretty sure as well, there's a very good feeling towards veterans in this country, especially in the last 15 years. If you are based in, let's say, Tidworth, and you go to a company in Swindon, a financial services company, you say, look, would you mind like just coming in for 1 hour this next week and speaking to my blokes and giving them the very Billy basics about money management, teaching them what APR is, showing them some examples of if they save their money, how good their fucking money. Like they're not going to be worried about the pension shit when they get out because they can have compounding effect. Like let's say they're in for 10 years, that compounding effect of putting a bit of money aside. Not so much now. The interest rates are so shy. But when I first got in, there's good. You could just save some decent money. And by the same token, right, lads, if you've got 30% APR on a card, this is how much it's going to cost you over 4 years. And just showing lads basics like that. Now, some of that comes down to leadership. This should be the kind of thing that young officers are going out and arranging for their blokes. I truly believe that.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't just be down to them. It should be a part of. We shouldn't just be concerned about how to post the fucking grenade and that kind of stuff. We should be concerned about, because look, if a soldier has his financial life in order, I'm just using finances, but this goes the same as relationships and everything else, right? If you have all areas of your life squared away, fitness, relationships, fucking, physical, mental, they're all squared away. You are a better soldier. Hands down, you are a better soldier because you are coming into work confident, motivated. You're on top of the world. You're not when you go away on tour. What's the biggest problem when you go away on tour? It's not the IDs and stuff like that. It's people fucking with shit going on at home.
Yeah,
and that can distract them, and you get distracted. That kills people. It makes sense for everybody. It makes sense for the fucking economy. It makes sense for the local businesses. It makes, there's so much like now. If you tell a young lad all this stuff and they choose to chin it off, so be it. But there's no reason that it shouldn't be put in front of them.
I found that whenever I left the army, whenever I got discharged in February 2015, everything had got on top of me. I was teaching a lesson, and I'm going to get to what you were saying in a second, but I was teaching a lesson in MCTC in the classroom with a lot of guys in there, and I was teaching something which is second nature. Orders process, which we now know is REPI, receive, extract, estimate, prepare, and issue. We know that. But whenever I was Bracken Point say that, but whenever I was teaching it,
just got Bracken handed.
Whenever I was teaching it, I forgot the process. I forgot what the word stood for. And I had a little bit of a that's when everything started falling apart. And I had to say to guys, right, guys, outside for a smoke break. And I was like, what's going on in my head? What's the orders process? What does it mean? It just went from me, and I went blank. Now, the way I found to get around that eventually, whenever I got discharged, I had a bit of a meltdown, and I left the classroom and I went and seen the RSM. And I just walked into the RSM's office because we had an open door policy at MCTC. And I went and says, listen, sorry, I'm having a bit of a breakdown here. I don't know what's going on here, and my hand started shaking. I was like, I don't know what's going on. And then he says, right, do you know what they did? They walked me off camp, sent me home, and they never came near me. Not a phone call, not a message, not an email. 7 months with no contact. And I was phoning up going, what the fuck's going on? What's going on? And it got to the stage where I had a breakdown and I jumped in the car and I drove it at speed into the wall to try and commit suicide.
I actually remember seeing it on the news, I think.
And it was a terrible time. I didn't know where it fitted. I had nothing. My wife got me through it, honestly, and a woman called Leslie Perry, who was the CPN in Colchester, who was fantastic. But what I've learned since then is it's not just about medication. First of all, you have to identify you've got an issue. Yeah. If you can't identify you've got an issue and you don't believe you've got an issue, you're not going to move forward. But I was very lucky that a guy called David Lynch, who runs the David Lynch Foundation in America, who does transcendental meditation, give me and my family a scholarship to learn that, which is to meditate. Yeah. So the one thing
big fans of meditation on this podcast, right?
Mate, I learned to do TM, which is fantastic. So with TM, I still take medication every day. I'm not going to lie, but see with medication, I honestly meditation, not medication, both together can help you through and help you deal with your PTSD. Now, what I'm currently doing at the minute is, with the David Lynch Foundation, they've made me the UK ambassador for transcendental meditation, which is fantastic. What I'm doing now is trying to promote that in the army and get an interview or set up to go and see Penny, the Defence Secretary. Myself and somebody who people don't really like that much, but he's not a bad bloke, Russell Brand.
I love Russell Brand.
Well, Russell Brand...
get him on podcast.
He does great things with meditation stuff. Now, he has had drinking drugs problems in the past.
That's why I relate to him. Yeah.
He's through that, but he uses TM every day. So the plan is to try and get Penny to see me and Russell and have a chat about it, and to see if the MOD will start to teach young recruits meditation as part of their training package, right? That there will then give them a tool in the toolbox that they can go to if they find themselves in future conflicts or in a traumatic surrounding. So we are trying to get that implemented. It works in America. The US Marines do it in America. 15 RCT, they all use it in America. It's up at Fort Bragg. It's taught as part of the training.
Mate, okay, I always just say to people, samurai. That's the only word you need to know about meditation. If people start, this sounds like woo-woo, go get in your time machine and go and tell the fucking samurai it sounds like fucking woo-woo.
Exactly.
Fuck.
It's another tool, though. So
it's a tool.
It's something the more tools we can give to a soldier to deal with a traumatic incident, the better they will be able to do their job.
Not even a traumatic incident, mate. Just life.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is what I keep saying to people, right? And this is why I love the reason of the samurai, right? Meditation, I almost wish it was called something else because it has such a brand problem. I mean, it might as well be called paedophilia because that's the reaction people have to it is fucking not positive, right?
Yeah.
People think, and I was the first one. When my mate, he's a very successful DJ musician, and he started telling me about meditation and stuff, and he's like, oh yeah, it helps you get your thoughts in order and all that, and I thought that's going to fuck up my writing because I need my mind to be like that, and I couldn't have been more wrong. And what it does is, like, from the point of view of the soldier, a lot of meditation is just mindfulness, right? It's about being aware. So what better tool for a soldier than being more aware? Like, literally, when you are on patrol and everything like that, those little details about, like, so if you're mindful, right, it's one of the things is like, right, we all have this. We're trying to think about something. Like, when's the time you've gone to make a sandwich, maybe, and the next thing you know, you're on your phone and you're like, and you look over and you've got half a sandwich made, and you're like, fucking hell, I started that 10 minutes ago. When you're mindful, you will begin to realize when your mind's drifting, and you just bring it back onto task. So let's say you're on fucking patrol. It's fucking 50 degrees. You're hanging out your ass. Your mind starts to drift and you start to think, oh, I can't wait. I'm 1 hour in a week. I can't wait to fucking go home, smash the missus, blah, blah, blah. You don't see a fucking bit of disturbed earth, bump, gone. Every one of I challenge anyone that's been on tour to say to me, your mind hasn't drifted off when you've been on patrol. And it's about bringing that mind back closer. Section commanders, right? When you're doing your section attacks, there's that fucking moment, isn't there? You get the 2IC take over. Why does the 2IC take over? Because you take your little snurgle back and you look around. Right, okay, what's going on here? Right, we've got enemy position there. Right, we've got a bun line over here. We've got a stream over there. You're taking a look on it. That is what mindfulness is. It's that condor moment of taking a look at everything and just being more focused. Why wouldn't we want our soldiers to be like that? Why? Like, I've seen some people thinking, like, it'll turn people into robots, or it'll do this, it'll do that. I understand where it's coming from, because I felt exactly the same way. And I'm here to tell you, it has made me more efficient in every single fucking way. My work has got better. I turn out more work. I turn out better work. I've got fit in the gym now. Like, so, you get distracted in the gym. You focus. It's not about we all sit around like fucking monks chanting. It's not about that. Don't worry. You can still helicopter your cock at people. You'll just be better when you're helicoptering your cock. You'll be more in the moment. That's what it's all about. And I'll say this to the army, because I don't want people thinking, like I always say, I love the army and I do it all again. There are people out there in the army, I reckon, who are doing fantastic work at the moment. I forget his first name, Glenn something. I retweeted one of his tweets the other day because I was so happy to see a senior enlisted person in the army advocating meditation. I thought, yes, this is where we need to be, because he's a big, hard-looking guardsman. And I thought, if he's on board, we're in the right direction. And again, people are like, oh, we're going too woo-woo. No, we're not. We lost what the samurai had. We're going back to that. We live in an age of distraction. You didn't have as much distraction 30 years ago. You have more now. We need to, our minds are cluttered and all over the place. We need to get back on track. Have you seen that video that the army did with they call it like a 5 key point thing the other day, which is about goal setting and,
Yeah.
Some people had a problem with that. I'm like, how can you have a problem with goal setting? I mean, look, let's go back. You mentioned the orders process. What is the orders process if not goal setting?
Exactly.
And these things are in the army already. But as well as having a goal setting, i.e. orders process for a mission, we're having goal setting for a person. Goal setting. And these are the things that we kind of been doing in right, where do you want to be in a couple of years? Oh, I want to be full school, I want to go to Breck, and, all that kind of stuff. So that goal setting has been there, but it's about daily goal setting, becoming a better version of yourself on a day-to-day basis, maybe by working a bit harder in the gym, maybe by learning something. So, that stuff was great. I'm trying to think of some of the other things in there. Oh, changing a negative thought into a positive thought. Because again, people are like, oh, well, banter's just a part of the army. Don't worry, banter's not fucking going anywhere. Yeah. But there's a big difference between banter and me saying oh, fucking hell, I fucking hate the HCR, whatever, and having banter. That is very different to me thinking, I can't believe I'm here for another 3 months. I'm not going to see my family. This is fucking shit. I wish I'd never joined the army. My missus is going to cheat on me, blah, blah, blah. And you go down that fucking spiral. Now, changing negative thought to positive thought. I'm out here for another 3 months. My family are so fucking proud of me. And I'm here for 3 months, and I'm going to look after my fucking blokes. I'm going to make sure all my fucking blokes go home. And then we're going to go home together. Do you know what I mean? That's that little turn, and all it took was changing that thing of. So, again, how can that be anything but positive?
Middleton does a good tour, his Mind Over Muscle tour, and his is all about positivity. If anyone hasn't seen that tour, he's got 3 extra dates. Get yourselves on it. It's brilliant. So he's going to do that. And
10%
awesome.
Of those sales, please.
Exactly. No, but his tour that he goes around different theatres doing is all about positivity, and that's getting a new, fresh message out, because at the minute, without mentioning all the other words, which is happening in the news, we need to have more positivity.
Well, yeah, and look, and that's the thing. And I think... so we felt like we had Brian Wood in this very studio the other week. I had Sean on here, Sean Jones, and I've had other guests, and I think that there is a lot of that going around. I think you and I are both we're more outspoken about the negative stuff than a lot of people. I'd say that, but I mean, Brian Brian's story is the most terrible story ever about being fucking dragged in. I literally don't think you can find a worse betrayal than that. Check out his book, Double Crossed. We're going to come on to some books in a minute, but I think there is a lot around there. But I do also think that, because the thing is, the reason I started being more vocal about some of the negative stuff, and again, I don't really even use the word negative, because we're trying to make a positive. I want people to go into the army, love the army, and come out and have a positive life. That's what I want. I'm not saying like nobody join the army. It's fucking shit. I'm not saying that whatsoever. I want it to be the best for people. I want this country to have the best armed forces in the world, which I don't think we have anymore. I'm being fucking honest. I don't think we do. I think we used to. I don't think we do anymore. I still think we have the best raw material in the people. Yes, I do. But I do think that there's been things I don't think people understand how much our prestige has taken a hit across the world because of us just leaving Basra and that kind of thing. And like, look, let's be honest, we fucking left it. We lost Helmand. It's in the hands of the Taliban now. You might not know that. Some of the people listening, the fucking enemy does. All right, so there's that. But getting back on my point. The reason I'm saying this stuff is because I'm sure you're the same. We just want things to be better. So sometimes you have to say criticisms.
I've got your outlook. As in you want our army to be best in the world. Of course we do. Mm-hmm. But I'm the opposite than you. I don't want anyone to join the British Army.
Right.
Until we can fix veterans. Now, It's not because I don't love my country. I do love my country. I'm a patriot, which is now classed as something else. However,
we've got to go into
I honestly believe that we shouldn't put young men and women in danger now, and we shouldn't promote them joining up until we have the aftercare system fixed, because the minute veterans are being shit on.
Yeah. Well, and this is why I want to give the two-sided thing. And this is why on this podcast, maybe anybody listening that didn't know me might think that I'm quite bitter about this stuff. And I am in some ways. I'll be the first to say it. But it's because I get 16, 14, 13-year-olds messaging me on Instagram saying, I can't wait to be in the army, all this stuff about it. And I'm like, they're only getting fed the positives. And the fact is that at 18 years old, they might see their fucking friend's fucking legs come off, and then they might end up a drug addict at 20 and chucked on the fucking shit heap by the army and the MOD. That is the fucking reality of the situation. And I'm sorry, I've seen it too many times. People getting fucked over. And I don't give a fuck about me, because I've come out the other side. I'm quite fucking happy. But I can use me as an example. I did 3 tours with the British Army. Since I left, I've never had one letter, one phone call. Have you got a job? Are you doing okay? Do you need any help? Not once. Now, fine. I'm doing okay. Don't need you. A lot of people fucking do. So I'm the same as you. I want to give. Yeah. If you're a 13-year-old, because I know there's young people listening to this now, let me tell you, I had the best times of my life in the army. I made the best friends. However, it is not all fucking roses. And you need to know that.
When people send me messages, and I get quite a few, probably don't get as many as you do, but I get quite a few messages from kids even on Twitter and Facebook saying that they wanted to join the army, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not putting services down, but I signpost them all to the Royal Navy because it's safer.
If you're going to do a career, it's probably the smarter choice, to be honest. For me, I would go back and do it all again. If Helmand was still going on now, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I'd be trying to get myself out in Helmand. I'd probably still be waiting on fucking Glasgow to send me paperwork. But like I want to go back out, because even though I know the downsides, I'd still take that. But it's not about me. It's about other people, about other people too. And it's, I'm fucking very lucky. I live a very fucking good life. I get to travel a lot. I've got a fucking job that I love. I have a great fucking family and great friends. Not everybody is that fortunate. And that's why I'm kind of speaking out. Not everybody has a platform where they can use it. And I think it would be wrong of me to not use that platform to signpost some of the negative things. Doesn't mean I'm a negative person. I want everything to be better. I want people on a daily basis to be a better version at the end of that day than they were at the beginning of it. Right? I don't think there's anything more positive than that. I want us to have the best army in the world. I don't want us to go fucking getting into stupid wars like we have been doing before that have no interest in the same. I tell you what, actually, fucking hell. Rant mode engage. Okay, begin veteran rant. Veteran rant. It makes me feel really bad when I get a message off somebody that says, thank you for making our country safer. Because the only reply I can give to them is like, oh, you're welcome or whatever. But the truth is, we haven't fucking made the country safer. Made the country less fucking safe. Iraq, the worst thing that ever happened in the war on terror was invading Iraq. We give jihadists a legitimate grievance of look what they're fucking doing. Like America right now are kicking off against Iran. Who was the biggest kind of bastion of defense against Iran? Was the country that kept fighting wars with them. It's called Iraq, and we went in there and fucked that up. They were the shield against Iranian influence in the Middle East. We fucking ruined that. That's why Iran is now. It's such a fucking mess. I can't say that the life of my family is any better off because of the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. it's definitely not. It's definitely not better for anybody who lives in fucking Iraq. You know, I was just made a message on my Instagram the other day about like, you know, how that like, yeah, was it shit under Saddam? It was. It's certainly not. Like it's certainly not a fucking paradise now. It's definitely life is definitely worse for anybody that's lost a fucking son, brother, you know, husband, etc. And in Afghanistan, you know, I actually was on board with what we were doing there. I'm still on board with why we went in, but we fucked it up. We left because of some politically correct timeline. Now, while we're on the subject of, unless there's anything you want to add to that, mate, I was going to say I wanted to get into this Patriots thing.
Yeah, no, good.
Right, so while we're on the subject of political correctness, there was this memo circulated on Twitter and stuff that I thought was fake. I'm very glad that I did not robo eyebrows Jen this thing, because it was a document basically for leaders in the army to spot right wingers and by right wingers I mean hard right. So, you know, you're kind of like your traditional skinhead Nazis and stuff like that, and that is like super right. And then you know, your right wing is traditionally your conservatives and stuff, and then there's some people who are a bit more kind of like, I don't like to use that term right wing. I think more nationalistic, right? Nationalistic is the same. And even though that doesn't line up with my politics, I'm a bit of a lefty, but as a lefty, I believe that people should have the right to their fucking political opinions. And I was very worried to see this kind of groupthink. This is how you should think, and you should report soldiers who. So, like, look, what I will say is this: a lot of soldiers are young, and when you're young, your political ideals usually left, or there's not many fucking young people who have centrist kind of thoughts of politics. You usually think everyone should be taxed everything and everyone given equal, or that you swing the other way and you're like nobody should get benefits, etc. Young people are people of extremes. But it really, like, it didn't sit well with me to see this kind of document, which, by the way, looked like it got made by a fucking child. So whoever made that, you should get the sack, because it fucking sucked. But, yeah, it just, like, how did you feel seeing this document, man?
Well, when I first got sent it, and whenever I checked the IP address and whenever I checked everything where it came from, it actually came from a BNP site, and I thought it was a lie. I thought, BNP site? This is weird. Surely this is fake. Now, I then sent personal emails to different people at the MOD, and they said that it was genuine, but it had been produced 2 years ago in 2017.
Yeah, so they haven't run with it.
Yeah, so it
but
has.
They still commissioned it.
Yeah, they commissioned it. It has been produced by the MOD, and it is to spot extreme right wing in the men around you in the army.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is it does mention to be aware of those who class themselves as patriots.
That was my problem with it. I have no problem with identifying extreme right wing.
Yeah.
Like if you've got someone in your platoon, and here's the thing as well, right? I think we have to be aware. Again, like I said, we're dealing with violent young men.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are going to say stuff that's not politically correct, but they're just fucking running their mouths. It's not a big deal. But then there are occasions where you're like, hang on a minute, this person is like, I actually think this person is thinking about doing violence to someone. And that could be anything. It's the same as if somebody says, I'm going to kick that fucking bloke's head in, like over a girl. Most of the time they're running their mouth. If you think that they're actually going to do it, then it's time to step in.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with that in theory. But I did have the problem with some of the examples that they were giving, because I'm thinking like, I'm thinking a lot of this stuff could just be like, you could be taking, and again it comes back to like a lot of what I'm saying, ruining things down the line for people by just a young person running his mouth, saying some stuff that hopefully he'll grow out of as he meets more people, grows up, but you could potentially end this person's army career because of a couple of like stupid things that came out of his mouth. I'm not very comfortable with that.
I think, if I'm honest, I think the MOD produced this leaflet to appease other people in Parliament. They didn't produce it because they haven't given it out. So they did produce it, but I think it was just done as a bit of an appeasement thing. And someone has let it slip to the media by showing us this thing, which is just the biggest sort of bollocks.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all always need to be wary of this stuff, because what one of the great things about the British Army is that it is apolitical. It's not like some countries where it's like, I'm not really happy with the last election, think we'll have a coup. We don't really have that in this country, which is, well, maybe actually, I take it back. We should have a coup.
If Corbyn gets in, there might well be one.
Yeah, you know what? Like, but that's what I love about this country is that even if look, bottom line is you're not going to find a lot of people in the military who fucking support Jeremy Corbyn. That's the fucking bottom line. Prove me fucking wrong. But we'd still do what he did if we still do as he said if you were serving. You would.
Of course you would.
Yeah, and that's what I love about the British military. You still do. You say you'd be like, all right, well, people have spoken. Fuck it. I don't like him. But I'm going to do the job. I think that's fucking awesome. But yeah, I'm very. I think, and again, this is something that without getting too off track, and I've said before that I'm supportive of the idea of opening up combat roles to women. I don't think the way that they're doing it is the right way, in my opinion, and I'm just a fucking total amateur on this. But I don't have a problem with women serving in combat roles. What I see as the issue is that you're going to put a bunch of 18-year-old lads in with a girl in the infantry. That is going to cause problems because the people say, well, they should act more mature. If they were acting more mature, they wouldn't have joined the fucking infantry to shoot people in the face. And it's only going to take. It only needs to be one person in that platoon.
Yeah,
it doesn't need to be. So what I've always said is, and I love this example because it defines the infantry for me. It's the old windmilling your cock at your mate, or let's say pissing on your mate in the shower. Right? When that happens, when somebody goes over and pops a cock on a shoulder or something, is that going to then be a sexual harassment thing, or is it just getting treated like one of the boys? And because I've said before, the way infantry behave, especially infantry, is some people would think it's disgusting, but I actually think there's psychological reasons behind it. I think it makes a lot of sense, right? I think the reason because it's a learned behaviour, right? You go in and that's how people are behaving. One of the lads was telling me recently about when he was a crow, he had to stag on the door while someone was like choking themselves and fucking wanking with a resi on. That's the kind of stuff that goes on. Not with everyone, but it goes on. And like I was saying, the decompression, we're pissing on each other, all that kind of stuff. I think the reason that's been passed down, because it is a learned behaviour when you come in, I've had a deep psychological insight. If you can't deal with pissing on your mate, how are you going to deal when his arterial spray is going all over your face and his legs hanging off? Now, I think there's some fucking truth to that. Think about it, right? Because the thing is, these traditions have been passed down. Because we have traditions like mess do's. We also have traditions like being disgusting little creatures in the barracks. And I think the reason why is imagine if everything's sanitary. Imagine if you never see each other naked. Imagine if you've never had a bit of your mate's piss on you. Imagine if you've never had to shit next to each other in the field and all that kind of stuff. And the first time you ever get confronted with that kind of intimacy is when your mate's fucking horrifically injured. Does it not make sense that maybe that's like part of a thing?
It does make sense. When I went out on Harrogate as the new platoon sergeant of my platoon, our medic was a girl called Killy. Killy Hornigold, her name was. She was quite an attractive girl, and she was my medic. Now, whenever I got to the platoon, I got to see the platoon. I did the first patrol to sort of try and get to know the area of Sangin again. And I went in and sat down. Kaylee went back to her tent. And whenever she went back to her tent, I then had to call my platoon. I didn't have to. I felt I needed to. I called my platoon away from her area. And I said, right, guys, here's the issue I've got right now. We've got a female in the platoon. And I've noticed on that one patrol that a lot of yous are staring at her. Now, I will remove her from this platoon. The first chance or the first sign I see of any of you either trying to hit on her or not doing your job properly, does everyone understand? And everyone went, yeah, fair one. And from that moment on, you need to have that chat though. Yeah, you definitely need that chat. Once you have that chat out in the open and you let them know it's professional only, then it goes well. And it's nice to have a girl.
But the thing is, mate, that's the thing, because we've had female medics and they've been fucking awesome.
Yeah.
But they're not in the section.
Exactly.
They're not in the section.
And
that to me is an issue. It's when you're in the section, because you can't make that. Because the thing is, when you've got REME attached, when you've got medics attached, there's that thing of there's that little, and it's a fine line. But there's a difference between the way you treat someone in company HQ or platoon HQ and the way you treat your section mates, and
This is
that's
the
where
issue.
it's going to get dangerous. No, not dangerous, but that's where it's going to get. It's messy.
This is the issue we have today with women on the front line. People are going to watch this and go, well, no, such and such was in the front line. No, they fucking weren't. Your medics are attached to platoon sergeant. They're there. The guys are out fighting the battles and pushing it forward. The women aren't doing that, fighting it push forward. If one gets injured and your guy goes down, right, you want to be able to get your medic to move forward safely to extract that person. And it may be lift that kit, the adrenaline's pumping, it's lifting that whole body, that kit, and getting them back. Now, there is women out there that can do that.
100%.
I'll mention that Chantel Taylor, awesome medic, done a lot of great stuff in the army. I mean, brilliant. So you've got her that could do that easily. Kelly Honeygold that was attached to me could have done that with a little bit of help. She wasn't really strong.
I just want to say as well, there are lads that can't do that.
Exactly,
there are lads
and that's
that
the
can't
issue.
do that.
So whenever people are saying women should be in the front line, yes, they should. But let's be honest, a lot of men shouldn't be in the front line.
Yes, and this is 100% the point.
Yeah,
that the infantry isn't for everyone, and that's the thing. Because my thing is like, and I've always said this as well. It's like, I believe that there are women out there who can not just do the job as well, but they can do the job better than most infantry soldiers. I believe that there are women out there who can do that. For me, it comes down to the fact is that not society, but the people making these decisions, they want equality. Great, I'm on board with equality, but equality means that they then get treated exactly the same as the blokes. And if that means one of the lads says something to them which is lewd, and like the same way as I'd say to one of my mates, I might say to one of my mates as a joke, like, "Oh, you're looking fucking tasty. How about I give you a good fisting?" Right? And he takes it as a joke. She might not take that as a joke, but because if he didn't take it as a joke, what would happen is he'd just say, "Fuck off, mate. I'm not in the fucking mood." Mm-hmm. If she says something, or someone else on her behalf even, doesn't have to be that person, they might take it as a joke. Someone else might overhear and go, "I heard Corporal Jones said that he was going to fist this person in the arse. That is fucking terrible. He needs to be written up." That's the problem. Equality means everyone gets treated the same. It doesn't mean that they get treated the same in some areas and they're not in others. That, to me, is where the issue is going to come in. And to be honest, mate, I don't think it's the women in these roles that's going to be the ones saying this stuff and flagging this stuff up. It's going to be people who are trying to fucking virtue signal and point score on the fucking outside. Yeah. So it might be a platoon commander maybe who comes in. No offense, platoon commanders listening, I know some of you do. But it might be them who go, "Oh, well, I heard such and such say this woman." And they might think, "Oh shit, if I allow this to go in my platoon, my career's fucked." So they come in and arse cover. That's where the fucking problem comes in. It's because if you want them to be in a rifle section, and like I said, I think there's women out there can do the job, fucking hands down. Like I said, better than a lot of the lads. Probably stronger, fitter. Some of these fucking women do CrossFit and shit. I'll take them for fucking. If I gotta get carried out of a fucking, if I'm a casualty, I'll take them carrying me about than a lot of the lads any day, right? But it's going to be when people are trying to arse cover and all that. That's when the fucking problems are going to be. And there's going to be good lads who get kicked out or lose their careers, lose rank and all this kind of stuff, or get tainted with the term of being a fucking, basically a sex offender for things that they say. It's going to be a mess. It's going to be a mess. And I asked someone recently, I'm still waiting out on this, but apparently, and I could be wrong on this, because I was thinking like, well, when they're in training, when they're at phase 2 training at Catterick, are they going to be accommodated with the blokes? And apparently not. Well, I could be wrong on this, but this is what I heard. I'm not going to name my source, but this is what I heard originally. So let's just say that they're not accommodated with the blokes. Well, how is that going to work? Like, how is it going to work that you're in a section together, but you're not like, you know, and look, I'm going to be fucking 100% real on this, right? Because it's my fucking podcast, and I'm telling the fucking truth as I fucking seen it, and that's that. I have served with women who were very respectful in how they conducted themselves, and other people were very disrespectful about what they did there. And I want to be the first to say, just because you have sex a lot doesn't mean you're not respectful. So that's the fucking truth too. You can have a lot of sex, that's fine, whatever. Good for you. Doesn't mean you're a fucking slut or anything like that. I don't believe that. It means you're just doing what's fucking right for you. Good for you. There are fucking, I would say, in my experience, sue me for fucking saying it. Actually, don't sue me. I haven't got any money. I would say that there's a lot I have come across, I would say 50-50, toss a coin, the half the women I've known in the military, and let me say this first. A lot of the guys I've known in the military have been very sexually promiscuous. Half the girls I've known in the military have been very sexually promiscuous. I would say you've got a 50-50 chance of that person being sexually promiscuous. What happens when people end up, you're staggering on together, you're bashing up together? I'm not saying that means you definitely end up having sex. I'm saying it's going to happen in the big scheme of things. You get enough people together, that's going to happen. What happens when somebody in a rifle platoon starts sleeping with a couple of different guys in the rifle platoon? I don't have the answers. I'm just saying it's going to be fucking messy.
Of course it is, yeah. It's going to cause frustration amongst the guys. She's my girl, blah, blah, blah. It causes frustration.
And she has every right. If she wants to sleep with two different guys, she has every fucking right to. She has every right to. I'm just saying that it's going to cause problems.
Of course it is, yeah.
You know? So, yeah, right. Mate, okay, well, I want to just bring something up because something we were talking about earlier. So you wrote a book. Well, you've written a few books. You wrote, what, 6, is it?
No. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, first 3, yeah. So you've written 3. So you did one called First Into Sangin. You wanted to address... Because you said some people have had a chip on the shoulder about you saying First Into Sangin.
Yeah. It's been a drama since the day it was written. First Into Sangin. I named it First Into Sangin. Now, I know that a lot of paratroopers, not quite a few, I'd say probably 10 or 15. Now, I've given a copy of that book to quite a few people, especially my Sergeant Major at the time was Mick Bolton. Now, we never decided to call it First Into Sangin. It was because it wasn't the fact that I was the first person in Sangin, because before us there was a few Gurkhas in there as well. But before A Company 3 Power deployed to Sangin as a company group, my platoon had already been in there. We got dropped off, I think it was called an IRT task force. There was a broken down pin score and we got dropped off. We ended up in Fob Robinson for a while, which is the American camp where we had the artillery. And we patrolled down into Sangin when the governor was there and there were still a few issues. And we ended up staying there, I think it was probably just over a week or close to 2 weeks we stayed there. And it was quite tough having to deal with that. And we stagged on with the militia, which is weird. Before the militia turned against us, we would have 2 guys on at night just stagging on. And we knew that the militia were smoking marijuana constantly, and the whole place smelt of marijuana. It's
not good.
And I reckon that if we had drug tested, our whole platoon would have been kicked out because it was just everywhere, and you didn't want to cause friction with the militias.
Mate, you can't tell them not to do that stuff.
But because we were there as a platoon task, and we stayed there, I decided that when I was going to write my sort of little memoir, now I only wrote that to deal with all the shit in my head.
Yeah, which is I'm a big advocate of writing to deal with.
So, and I kept a diary. I kept my diary every day about what we were doing, and I'm glad I did. But whenever I was writing it, I decided to call it First Into Sangin because I knew that the title would make the book stand out.
Yeah, and that's great. Like speaking of putting my author hat on, I'm going to take my cynical conspiracy theory hat off and put my author hat on for a minute. You got to make a title that grabs people's attention, and it does.
And it grabbed attention. A lot of it for the right reason. A few guys passed. I'm not going to slag them off, but the fact is they had a right to say, "Oh, hold on, A Company were there first. A Company were the first company group."
Because look, I thought that it was the paras who were in Okay, so actually, I'll go back and say even more. I thought when I was in Musakala in 2009, I thought in 2006 the paras had been kicked out of Musakala by the Taliban. What I learned when I worked on the book No Way Out with Major Adam Jowett, who is fucking one of the best leaders I think the British Army's been lucky to have, is and shout out Hugh Keir as well. I was on his podcast recently. Check out H-Hour podcast, guys. I felt at the time, I was like, that's what I thought. I thought, oh, fucking paras, they got kicked out by the Taliban. What actually happened was a combined company of made up of 2 rifle platoons from the Royal Irish with support elements from the paras, mortars, snipers. Hugh was one of the snipers. Major Jowett was from the paras. They went in together, fought so ferociously and killed so many of the fucking enemy that the Taliban just basically stopped trying to fucking attack them anymore because they were getting so fucking smashed. And then what happened in the end was the tribal elders wanted them to leave, so a different force came in. The tribal elders brought in their militias, etc. They took over the job of holding the DC, and the force was extracted. Now, there was some talks with the Taliban to allow the extraction to happen. That is a very different story to paras got kicked out of thing. Yeah. But that's what I heard, and it's the same. Like if people have been told, mate, I had somebody the other day, fucking, I'm still not sure if it was a troll or not, telling me I wasn't in Iraq because they'd heard it wasn't possible. Like, people hear these things and they react to it. And like I said, like a lot of the time it's from people they're coming from a good place.
Of course, yeah.
You know, they're coming from a thing of, you know, like, they think that they're like, oh, he's stealing glory from the paras or whatever. It's like they don't actually realise. Because here's the thing as well. I mean, I actually said this on the last podcast I did, my solo podcast, that because someone said, like, why are the paras disliked by the rest of the army? And I'm like, I don't think they are disliked. I think they just, you know, there's the banter back and forth between them and the same as any other regiment. But, like, civvies will come to the defence of units like that because they think, like, because according to the media, if you look at the fucking media, every battle and every scrap that's been fought has been either by the bootnecks, the Marines, or the paras, or the SAS. Like, the SBS might as well not exist. Yeah. And every other fucking line infantry battalion, a.k.a. Royal Irish, Royal Welsh. You know, like, I've always said, like, you want to look at a regiment, you know, that's fucking been in the fucking thick of it in the last 20 years. Look at the rifles. 4 rifles. They were in Basra Palace on Telic 10. They were in Sangin, I think, in 2009, 2010. 2 rifles, I know, and I'm sure the other rifles have. But, Jesus Christ, you want to talk about being in the thick of the fucking action, the fucking rifles. But you ask your average civvy about the rifles, they're like, oh, is that sharp, is it? Well, yeah, it is sharp. But they don't know about the rifles. Everyone knows about it. But, like, if I was a marketing fucking person, I would look at how the paras and the bootnecks have been marketing themselves, because they are great fucking units. Not like, I'm not taking that away from them, but, like, the civvy perception is that they're the only ones that do anything. Yeah. Whereas, like, you know, like, we've had Brian Wood in here the other week, the PWRR battle group on Telic 4. You know, we're going to have Dan Mills on Sniper 1. You know, the fucking fighting that they went through in Alamar on Telic 4, massive. The fighting that my fucking battalion went through, you know, a lot of it before I fucking got there at the beginning of the tour, like, those lads were in huge ops, you know, B Company down in Basra Palace, you know, like, it's all kind. There's loads of British units, and then there's other units, the fucking Light Dragoons. Remember in 2009, the smashing the Light Dragoons took, you know, it's like, there's a lot of regiments out there that have done a lot of fucking graft, but people just think paras and things, and that's why you probably got, if it had been 2 Royal Anglian who'd been first into Sangin or whatever, or you know what I mean, you wouldn't have heard anything off it. It's because it was the para. It was because it was paras, and people thought it was well documented.
I must say, which no one gets a mention of this unit. You know, I can remember coming into Fall Price and in Geraint. Now, that was at the start of Herrick 4. And the Fusiliers were there.
Yeah, shout out Fusiliers, Theatre Reserve.
They were there, and they were staggering on.
And so were First Battalion Royal Welsh. I know, because I have friends that were in Sport Company that are in and out of. They were in and out of there like fuck. But, like, you know, I did. British Legion had me on the other day to do a Q&A about Iraq, because it's 10 years since the withdrawal from Iraq, like the full withdrawal, not the withdrawal from Basra, which is a bit further on than that. And it's just a feeling that, like, people have forgotten about Iraq. You won your military cross in Iraq, in Baghdad, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. You know, I was down in Basra. And I'll tell you this, people listening, the fighting in Iraq at certain times was as intense as the fighting in Afghanistan. Shit bust. It fucking was. There's a reason that battle groups were having to roll into Basra City with Challenger fucking tanks at the front of the fucking convoys, Apaches overhead. It's only for political reasons that we do not think that that Iraq was the same level. It suited the political narrative. So, like, for instance, when I was in Telic 9 going on, like, 2 Lancs, I'll shout out 2 Lancs again, Chindik Company holding the old state building in Basra, absolutely smashed. Nobody knew anything about that, because at the same time, 16 Air Assault were in Afghanistan, and don't get me wrong, was 16 Air Assault doing a fantastic job? Fucking right we were. Were they going through loads of fucking hard fighting? Fucking right they were. But so were 2 Lancs, so were the Staffords, so were the Rifles, you know, and people don't know about it. And so a Blackwatch, there was a company Blackwatch out there, people don't know about that, because at the time we were watching on BFPS, and BFPS weren't even covering what was going on in Iraq, and people back home had no idea the scale of the fighting. Like, I actually looked this up the other day, and this isn't a scoreboard. I don't want anyone to think that I'm trying to make it a scoreboard, but it does illustrate a point. I think we lost something like 170 guys in Iraq or whatever. You look at the period of 2006, 2007, I think it's something like 50% fall in that bracket. That's because, and we were there from 2003 to 2012. I think what did I say? It was 10 years since the end of the Iraq thing, so that make it 2009, right? So we're there for 6 years, right? And most of that, like there was a lot of those casualties came in like a year period. Yeah, I mean, and like a lot of that 2007 was after we'd left the city too. So really, you're looking at probably like a 7-8 month window, and people don't know about it because at the same time, all that fighting was going on, and I think it looked, I hate to use the term sexier, but there was something. It's a lot easier thing to portray, saying like, here are our hero paras, which they are hero paras, going into Afghanistan to fight the evil Taliban who harbored Al Qaeda. That's a lot different to saying, yeah, we turned up looking for weapons of mass destruction. They didn't exist, and now the whole country's turned against us. And where we used to walk around in soft hats, now we can't go down the streets unless we've got a company of warriors and Challenger tanks. And yeah, we're getting fucking absolutely smashed every time we go out, and we're losing blokes left, right, and centre. That's a very different. And that's the media is a fucking spin, as we mentioned earlier. Nowhere in the fucking BBC or on any other news media outlet that I'm aware of was it covered that 25,000 veterans, I think it was, or something, marched against the decision to prosecute Soldier F. Yeah. Wasn't covered. The media did. That's why you got to come at veteran state of mind, people. The media, it's not like I always thought that the BBC give a balanced view of things. They fucking don't. It's simple as they don't. Sorry, mate, went on a bit of a fucking rant there. That's never happened before. But yeah, so right, we have to wrap this up soon, unfortunately, because we are coming down the time. I could keep going on about this stuff all day. Tell people what you're working on at the moment, what you're working towards at the moment. Like what are you working towards? What would you like to see? If I said to you, right, in 5 years' time, if you could have everything, let's say, because I think you're a realist like me, you understand this stuff is going to take a lot of time, and some of it, unfortunately, it's like trying to fucking, herd sheep or whatever, herd cats. Sorry. If I just got sheep on my mind because I'm Welsh. If you could have every change you want made, how would everything look in the next 5 years? What changes would you like to see come in? What would you like to see from the MOD? What would you like to see from the army? Not just in terms of mental health, but just in terms of looking after soldiers in general. And obviously, realistically, we'd all like to be driving gold-plated Bentleys, but realistically, what would you like to see?
I'd like to see Veterans UK scrapped. I think that it has the onus of looking after the MOD rather than looking after the veteran. So whenever you put a claim in or you have issues with Veterans UK and you have a complaint about the MOD's treatment with you, it doesn't get dealt with in the correct manner because you're having to wait. So it's like asking the MOD to investigate the MOD. So I'd like to see that scrapped. I'd like to have a separate entity or corporation, a bit like the VA have in America, where it's run by veterans, not by pen pushers. It's run by veterans who have been in the brunt of everything, who understand, and they have the passion and commitment to help veterans rather than try and save money.
But to be fair to the VA, has a lot of its the VA has a lot of problems too.
Of course,
say that. But you'd like to see veterans at the helm is the point.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make clear to people that you're not saying that the VA is perfect, but what you're saying is the idea of having veterans in the helm.
Well, the thing is, if you're going to use a support worker who is a qualified support worker, but they're a civilian, they look at you. You're just a number. You're just not tech. Now, if you have someone, if I go into you and I say, "Listen, mate, I'm having a few issues with this, and this." Yeah. You straight away have that compassion to go, I understand what he's going through. I got to say though, mate, I had a very good experience with my therapy. I don't know if I just got lucky or what, but the guy that helped me was civvy through and through. Yeah. And he was fucking brilliant. Oh, don't get me wrong, there is good ones.
But I do think I would agree that I'm a thing of something I wanted to come back to. I actually forgot to come back to. I was thinking maybe this is a point to jump in here as well. Is the big salary for veterans, the big salary for people on the top of charities. I still haven't decided because, look, people, when I say an opinion, right, my opinions are subject to change, as I think our opinions should be on fucking everything apart from the basic things of should people have a right to vote. Actually, I'm not sure some people should have the right to fucking vote, but, should people have the right to live in safety and things like that? All that stuff, yes, sacrosanct, boom. Everything else, my opinions will go back and forth on. So if you hear me say something on here one day and then a month later I say something else, Well, that's called being a fucking human being and evolving your opinion. And I think we should fucking change your opinions based on new evidence presented. So with that in mind, I used to be staunchly against people in charities receiving decent high salaries. I'm actually starting to change my mind a little bit on that now, because I think, unfortunately, and here's the difference as well between reality and what I'd like. What I'd like is that people who have let's say someone's made a fucking business, they've made millions of pounds, they're set for money for life, and they're going to go, I'm now going to go and work to a charity for free, and that I'd love that. But I'm realist, okay? I'm a fucking realist. I think in order to attract the talent to make these leading kind of like the biggest charities the best they can be, you may need to bring in people on a high salary, because this is like, as again, being a soldier, right? I used to think that when I was making 30-something grand as a Landshack, I was making loads of money. The reality is there's a lot of people within a mile or so of where we are right now in London who's making that a fucking day. Like, there's a lot of people make a lot of money. So in the grand scheme of the world, I know it might sound crazy. Someone making 150 grand isn't actually that much money. I know that sounds crazy. That's the truth. And if you want someone at the executive level who's really good, you're going to have to stump up six figures. And that's how it is. And the reason, and I used to think, well, it's a charity, that shouldn't matter. Now, the reason I've changed my opinion on this is because charities, I was thinking, what do they actually charities, what do they deliver? Is they delivering a service or everything like that? But when it comes down to it, what do they need? They need attention. They need to win attention. They need to win the attention of people and say, this is why this cause matters. This is why this cause demands your attention. This is why you should open your wallet and give money to it. This is why you should care. And like it or not, the fact is that you are competing against, when it comes to people's money, you're competing against Coca-Cola. You're competing against fucking Armani, that new pair of shoes somebody wants. There's only so much money people have got. So you're not just competing against other charities. You're competing against businesses. Businesses that spend billions on their advertising and marketing as an industry. And we need to be able to, as a charity, veterans, that is what you're competing against, because there's only certain people only have a certain amount of attention, people only have a certain amount of money. And charities are trying to get... it's wrong to think that they're just competing against other charities. It's not true. Competing against the entire market. So I'm kind of becoming more at peace with the idea that... Because I'm looking at it as a spend money to make money kind of thing. If you have the best people in, I would like to see those best people then streamline the companies, right? So get rid of bloat. So I'd rather have a couple of fucking killers who were on 150 grand than 30 people who were on 10 grand or whatever. You see what I mean? Because I want it to be these things run as best as possible. But then the better that charity is handled, the more money it can then bring in. So yes, there's people on big salaries, but then there's more money coming in. Now, I want to put a caveat on that. And my caveat is, what I'm not okay with is somebody getting, say, 60 grand a year for attending 4 or 5 board meetings. That kind of thing. That I am not okay with. But people whose day in, day out job it is to do it, I am okay with, because I'm just being real. Would I love if it was, the different case? I would. But I'm just kind of being realistic on it. But the Veterans UK thing, I think you've got a great point there, which is you have to look at who is their priority to serve. And if their priority is not the veterans when it's called Veterans fucking UK, like, that's not good enough. So what are some of the other things? Unless you want to, sorry, mate, come back on that.
I'd like to see a separate company that deals with, or a separate association that deals with veterans issues rather than Veterans UK, because they have the sole interest of the MOD rather than the veteran. If we can get that solved, that is a massive tick in the box for the veterans community. The other thing I'd like to see, which I'm currently doing in a minute, I'm currently fundraising. I'm trying to raise 10 grand. I've got 6 raised already, and I've got different auctions on the go, which brings in another 1,500. So I'm raising 10. It's not much money, but I am doing it at the minute. And what my plan is to get a mobile clinic up, get a lovely wrap done on it so it looks veterinary, and go around and visit vulnerable veterans with PTSD, because I get messages all the time about different guys at the UK. So I'm trying to get a charity, a mental health charity, to sort of sponsor it. And you know what? So when I say sponsored, I don't even mean money. I just mean to come on board and use it. Because I honestly believe that if you want to help veterans and get to the ones that are self-harming or the ones that are in financial debt, and You don't need to be a qualified. You don't even need to be.
No, I would agree with that. I think your qualification quite often can just be a set of ears.
If you can get them, I'd like to see quite a few. I'd like to see these sort of vehicles around the country where they're sponsored with fuel just by the big charities. It doesn't matter what charity it is, but they're sponsored by a charity who pay the fuel and stuff. I don't mean let's go and have a big slap-up lunch. That's all bollocks. Those expenses don't need to happen. But if you can sponsor someone's fuel, the veterans are happy to give up their time. Of course they are. And you get these vehicles around different parts of the country visiting people. I can tell you now that it may mitigate, not fix, but it may mitigate veterans that are...
I think that's a great idea. I do think visiting veterans and stuff is important because sometimes you need to take the help to people. I do agree with that. What I got to ask is, because I know some people will ask me, why did I ask this, is you were saying earlier about there being smaller charities, there's too many. So obviously, if anybody coming back on that would say, well, is this just going to be another small charity? So what's the kind of thinking on... It's
not a small charity. At the end of the day, there's over £1 billion, I'm saying billion, sitting in charities' accounts at any one time every single day of the week.
So you think that you're seeing this as, you thinking this is a new wing of an existing charity rather than a new startup?
Yes, exactly. I spoke to the Defence Secretary yesterday about this, and she's sending out certain stuff to me at the minute to get things up and running. But it's not sponsor. You don't need money from it. There's already money available for this.
Right.
All you're doing is taking money which is sitting in an account.
In a charity's account or the government account?
Government account.
Right, okay.
The government have ring-fenced 9 million at the minute.
Right.
9 million could buy 1,000 vehicles. We're talking maybe half a dozen vehicles up and running. Once they're up and running, a charity which already exists can sponsor those just to pay the fuel. And then they go around with the wraps done on, and they go around visiting. That way, if you look out your window and you see a vehicle turn up, truthfully, a lovely little wagon, we can bring the veteran in, have a cup of coffee, chill them.
Well, can I just, one thing I'm not sure about that is that if people would want, like, let's say you got neighbours and stuff, if they'd want that, maybe, do you know what I mean? Maybe a bit more clandestine might be the...
Possibly, yeah.
The way to go there. Like, but the idea of actually having someone visiting, I do think is a good idea.
You meet that veteran because a lot of veterans won't want you to turn up at their house. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't think it should just be. I wouldn't be happy if someone just fucking rocked up.
Exactly.
At my house. Like, even when the Amazon Prime guy turns up, I'm like, oh fuck's sake, I gotta go and talk to a human being now.
So all you got to do though is with those wagons, visit the breakfast clubs all around the UK. Visit breakfast clubs, have a chat. They get to see you. They come into the wagon, have a chat with you, and you give them your experience. I'm not a doctor, but you give them your experience of how you went through the shit that you got through and how you got out the other side. And you give them all these different tools.
Yeah. I think that's something we're doing here to a degree. Mate, we're going to have to wrap it up. But if you're up for doing this again, because I think we've got a lot more to speak about. Yeah. People, like, I actually, I made a shout out to people the other day on my last podcast of saying to people, like, look, I'm still trying to work out the direction that I'm taking this podcast and everything. And I'm trying to, I definitely, the one thing that's not going to change is I want to have guests on from the military community. And that is the wider military community, including people from civilians who have something to offer. For instance, people who are experts in depression or physical training and all that kind of stuff. But I do want your input, guys. So if you have questions for me and Trav, we can answer them on Twitter and stuff like that in a very short way. But to answer a question in 140 characters is so fucking hard. And so what I'd like to do, if you're up for it, is if you've enjoyed this episode, or even if you haven't enjoyed it, if you've got questions, you might disagree with both of us. And I think I think it's fair to say that neither of us think we have all the answers. We're doing the best we can, but we don't have all the answers, right? And I'm, like I said, I'm willing to change my opinion on things. So if you've got thoughts based on what we've said today, please send them in. Send them into the podcast. If you go to vsompodcast.com, one word, vsompodcast.com, there's an inquiries contact form in there. Please go on there and submit through the website questions, thoughts, anything like that, and I'll bring them up on the podcast. Like, I want your guys' input. Like this, we could have sat in a coffee shop and had this conversation. The reason we're doing it on mics is because of my crushing narcissism. No, it's because I want the input of other people, right? So please feel free, or not just feel free. I would actually really appreciate it if you did give us kind of feedback on this. Right, we got to wrap up, mate. So tell people about your books. Tell people where they can find you.
I am on Facebook as Veterans Voice. I have a page called First Into Sangin, which is just below 30,000 followers, I'm on Twitter. I'm not on Instagram because I'm not that cool yet. But my book, I'm going to be honest, I don't really promote it. I wrote it to get rid of crap in my head, but I don't really promote it.
I can't fucking recommend enough to people.
If you want to buy a book, and I'm going to be honest, buy Geraint's book or buy Brian Wood's book. Or
fuck Brian. Brian's got the best hair in the army. He doesn't need anything else.
I know.
No, buy Brian's book. I got a few books to plug actually because I wanted to shout out friend of the podcast Tom Marcus as well because he's got a book I Spy that comes out today. Well, it came out today. By the time you hear this, it will already be out. So check that out. But yeah, Brian's book out. Brian Wood's book, Double Cross. I think it's fucking awesome. Like people say to me, like I'm going to get kicked out of the studio in a minute, but people say to me like, like, why do you think it's a good idea promoting other people's books? Yeah, I do because it's like people. Well, people don't own just one book, but I want to raise the awareness, and I want because my story isn't my story isn't Trev's story. Trev's story isn't Brian's story. Brian's story isn't any other people out there. There's a bunch of great fucking books out there. And that's why I do it, because we've all got stories, and there's crossover in them, but they're all different as well. And I fucking love reading. I've always loved reading, and I want to encourage people to read. I'm not, this isn't. Look, put it this way: if I wanted to fucking make money, I wouldn't be an author.
Exactly.
There's a lot of other jobs I could be doing, which may be better money than being an author. No, I love being an author, and I'm very thankful for you guys for supporting that. But it's not like a money thing. It's a higher purpose. Like no, it's a calling, and it's and I'm sure Trevor will agree. Like you said, it's it's something that you have to kind of get out of you. So, guys, if some of you aren't following me already, I know a lot of you are. So thank you for that. At GRJ Books on everything, Golf Romeo Juliet Books, one word. Facebook, Twitter. I'm using Twitter a bit more now. I gotta be honest, I rather Instagram and Facebook, but I'm getting onto Twitter a bit more because I know some people only use that, and I don't want to miss people out. Thank you very much for supporting Brothers in Arms, my books. I do fucking appreciate it. It's on audiobook. As of today, I think it's out in Tesco now as well. So it's Tesco, Sainsbury's, Asda, Waterstones, Amazon. Thank you guys. Trev, thank you for coming on. I think we've covered a lot of ground here. We've got a lot more ground to cover because how can we condense all this stuff into an hour and a half? It's not possible, is it? So I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. I hope it's made you think about some things, or maybe like you've got, like I said, thoughts that aren't the same, and I want to hear them. So please, again, feastonpodcast.com. Catch you next time. I got a train to catch. Trev's got a train to catch too. Thank you so much, guys. Love you. Goodbye.